Welcome to Persevere, the podcast that sheds light on the grit and passion of creatives on their journeys. Award-winning destination photographer Ian Ivey is host to these incredible stories to encourage you to pursue your passions.
Hello, creatives, and welcome to Persevere. Creativity comes in many shapes, and when it comes to cult favorite beverages, it's no different. Twrl Milk Tea is the world's first canned plant-based milk tea. Twrl Milk Tea focuses on health, community, and sustainability, and it's my pleasure to introduce today's guest, co-founder and CMO, Olivia Chen. Olivia, I am so excited to have you with us on the podcast today. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having us.
Yes, of course. For our audience who may not know you and your business yet, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and Twrl's background?
So thank you so much for having us. At Twrl Milk Tea, we've created the world's first plant-based milk tea inspired by our Asian American heritage that's refreshing, delicious, and better for you and better for the planet. Twrl was founded on an obsession to make milk tea an Asian American drink that we both, Pauline and I, grew up drinking and loving even better. The result is a plant-based that gets its pure, clean flavor from ethically sourced teas. We don't have any artificial flavorings, and we're very low in sugar. We're very much focused on having a better for you offering that our kids, ourselves, we can drink every day guilt-free, anytime, anywhere. And that's what we're so excited about bringing the idea of the first plant-based milk tea in a can.
Yes, I absolutely love it. So fun fact, me and Olivia recently met in Palo Alto and I just fell in love with the tea. It tastes so good. And especially as someone who is lactose intolerant, I'm like, this is what I've been looking for all my life.
We totally relate. Pauline and I are both really busy moms, and we designed it for those people who are on the go, want something grab and go for the road, for outings, for picnics. But we also wanted it to have caffeine, like the perfect coffee alternative with all the benefits of caffeine and antioxidants from the teas and L-theanine of tea. But at the same time, we didn't want upset stomach or jitters or sugar crash. And Pauline is actually vegan. So we actually searched and tested 20 plant-based milk teas to actually make our product. And so we're really focused on kind of taste and wanting to have an easy, ready to drink option for people who are lactose-free, dairy-free, gluten-free.
Yeah, I love that it's such an inclusive product for people who might not be vegetarian or vegan. It's, they find it really delicious as well, too. That's awesome. How did you and your co-founder, Pauline, meet?
So we've been friends for 20 plus years. We met at a startup called Plumtree Software, and we were under the tutelage of the current CEO of Redfin, Glenn Kelman. Glenn is an amazing marketer, and both Pauline and I were on his team, and we worked in different capacities. I was a product manager, and she was in graphic design for the website side. And so we connected over our love of food. We were single, working at a startup, and we just, over the years, we would connect over dinner or over lunch. And we had talked about, maybe about 15 years ago, talking about the idea of starting a food company and focused actually on our Asian American heritage. I think we were thinking about like barley popcorn, which was totally unheard of then, but is actually a product that's available now.
Wow.
And remembering going to kind of like the natural food stores, doing competitive research. But then I have a young child then, and just motherhood and kind of busyness of life and work kind of overtook what we were doing. And then fast forward 20 years later, Pauline actually started Twrl in her home kitchen during the pandemic. And we were connected. We decided to kind of combine our forces of, from a marketing background and our love of food and our perspectives of being busy moms. Wanted to just really bring Twrl to the world, actually, to share that there is a better for you option. A lot of the milk teas and bubble teas out there are 200 to 300 calories, over 30 grams of sugar. I love that bubble tea and milk tea are super commonplace now and something that you can find on the streets of Paris or, the local street of our Bay Area, San Francisco. And it's something that is celebrated, that you can go and enjoy something that hails from Asia, from Taiwan, this milk tea, bubble tea. But we wanted to actually bring something that was a mix of our own backgrounds, being Asian American, being moms, a focus on sustainability, a focus on health, and having that something that we could feel comfortable drinking every day. Pauline and I are both, not in our 20s. And so our metabolism has slowed. That's one. And the effects of, the high sugar and also the dairy aspects. Yep. Those are things that we are looking for other options. And that's actually how Twrl came about.
I love that we are seeing more celebrations of different cultures. And Olivia, I know your parents are immigrants from Taiwan and you grew up here in Northern California. How has their journey to the U.S. or your heritage influenced your own path and the product?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So Pauline is actually from Hong Kong. Her parents are from Hong Kong. She grew up in Hawaii. And from Pauline's perspective, in Hawaii, it's a lot of fusion of different foods. And that palette and that kind of diversity is really celebrated there. And she brings that through with the product development that we see at Twrl. Pauline actually does a lot of our development, and in terms of wanting to bring newness and creativity to the drinks, that's where I think we really have a fusion from her own background. And then my own background is I grew up with milk tea really from the perspective of in Taiwan. When I first had real access to it, it was when my relatives came from Taiwan and they brought over this thing called boba or bubble tea. And it was like in packets and tapioca, and they were kind of freeze dried, and you had to cook it for, a while. And then you have to concoct your own concoctions. Nothing like what you can see like ready to go from a cafe nowadays. But we were making those things in my own home kitchen with my parents. And that love of milk tea, I think, carries over, that we want to have that celebration, that it's so commonplace that not just Asian Americans and Asians are drinking milk tea, but all different ethnicities, and celebrating the fact that tea is actually super accepted around the world. In the US, I think more people are coffee drinkers, but actually outside of the US, majority of the people are actually tea drinkers. And so what we want to do at Twrl is actually make the word Twrl Milk Tea as synonymous as what you think of as tea for latte versus, Starbucks for coffee. But we want that synonymous with tea latte.
Yeah, definitely. And I love that your product is in a can because it's so grab and go. Do you both ever have dreams or ideas of having this be more widely distributed in other cafes or having your own like brick and mortar?
I think for now, given kind of our capacity in terms of where we envision, we really want Twrl to be a brand that is a heritage brand. When I think of a heritage brand, I think of something, along the lines of Coke and Pepsi and Starbucks that really have kind of a legacy that is on for generations. And when we think about how to do that, it is actually through kind of traditional retail, also through direct to consumer, and making those drinks readily available. On the other side, kind of what you talked about, would they be available in cafes or restaurants? We do. We actually have a wholesale business that's actually quite thriving. And a lot of wholesalers from the restaurant world and cafes reach out and they want to stock our drinks because they're plant-based, and a lot of people are lactose-free and as well as vegan. So it is a kind of a world out there that we do see that happening. I think in terms of a brick and mortar, probably not right now. I think just because of our bandwidth. Yeah. So we're really focused on growing retail right now.
Yeah, no, that's great. I love that there is this high demand for having these options available for consumers. For other creatives that are in the food and beverage space, do you have any advice for distribution or getting into stores? Because I know getting that shelf space can be something you might have to fight for, at least what I've seen on Shark Tank.
We love Shark Tank. I do obsessively watch all the episodes. So my biggest suggestion is definitely look at the bottom line in terms of the margins and the cost of goods, and constantly keeping an eye on, is your product sustainable from a cost perspective? Do you have the ability to grow, as you grow with retail? And the reason I say that is it's a very expensive industry. And to be able to compete long-term with kind of the bigger CPG brands, you do have to have some creativity. And I would say a lot of hustle. I would say what Pauline and I bring to the table is we're definitely not afraid to kind of break the norm and do things out of the box in terms of our marketing and outreach. And that would be what I would say are the kind of the two things I would say a lot of smaller brands or brands that are just starting out really need to be aware of, that they do need to kind of think out of the box.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of piggybacking off of that, how did you two approach standing out in what some would say is a saturated market? Because there's so many beverages and, you have to have people see your products. Like, I love your packaging. I love the bright colors. Is that kind of how you went with it, with having your product stand out?
I think that's a fantastic question. So we're extremely lucky. Pauline actually is a package and product design director for the 15 years prior to Twrl. So all she did was design Fortune 500s, including Starbucks, Campbell. And so she really has a firm grasp of what it takes to stand out in terms of the newness of a new beverage. I definitely agree that beverage is extremely crowded. What's unique about Twrl is, and we've heard this consistently from customers as well as retailers, is there's actually nobody doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
There is no plant-based, there's no milk tea, there's no category for that in the retail world. And what separates us is we're also great tasting. So there are other milk teas out there, but they're actually full of sugar, they're actually full of artificial flavoring. So Twrl is actually 100% brewed tea. We don't have any flavoring, and we don't have any fats or creamers. We have no coloring. And so it's fairly clean and healthy. And it's 45 calories, 6 grams organic agave. So those distinctions make us stand out. We're also the first to use nitro infusion in tea. And what nitro infusion really lends itself is that creamy and smoothness that you typically get with dairy. And that uniqueness has been done in coffee, but it actually has not been done in tea, and wow, especially in milk tea category. So in terms of when founders think about, what are they bringing to the table when you come into a crowded space? Are you doing the same thing but better? Or are you actually able to create a new category within that space? And that's what kombucha did. Kombucha created a new category. Then, a flood of like 50 brands came in, and now it's settling back down, right, to a handful. And we actually had an opportunity to talk with Vanessa Du, the co-founder of Health Aid, pretty early on in our process of doing Twrl. And she had great advice for us about what to think about, what to do in terms of the process of thinking about having a product that is going to be in such a competitive space. And so we're very grateful for other women co-founders that have taken an interest in sharing their knowledge with us.
Yeah, Olivia, that is so great to hear that there is this really inclusive community that's happening with women entrepreneurs and people, especially women, sharing advice with each other as they grow their businesses, because it really is like a rising tide. While we lift others up, there's space for everyone.
I definitely agree. We've really been grateful. Olivia Chen from the co-founder of Mendocino Farms, and Jenny from 3Tree, all different women that are in the food and beverage world, have really been able to give us advice about how to think about financing, how to think about growing the business, even feedback about our packaging. And so that type of community uplift that you talk about, I think, is critical, especially between women and also within the food and beverage world. There's only 16% of women in the food and beverage world in leadership positions.
Wow.
And I would say when you go to kind of a lot of the retailer on the stockroom side, it is actually a lot more men. And so I can see kind of why it can be women being lost in the shuffle. One of my favorite podcasts is Cherry Bomb, and Carrie Gold talks specifically that she started her media business because she wanted to elevate women in the food and bev industry, giving them a platform to shine and to have a place of collaboration. And I love, her podcast where she really talks to different women in culinary, but also, bakers and just different things where she gives them a voice to kind of shine.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I love that cookbook. I've seen it and I was like, I need that.
Definitely.
So you had also mentioned that you have your own families. I wanted to know what might yours, I don't know if you could speak for Pauline as well, but what is your approach to work-life balance? Because that is huge. And I know, again, a lot of the times there sometimes isn't a balance, but I'm just curious how you approach that.
So that's a great question. Pauline and I are both moms and actively involved in our kids' lives. I have a teenager and I'm super incredibly grateful that he's, organized, self-directed. And what's been actually a blessing for me has been he's been able to be a part of Twrl and see us grow. A lot of times I do ask him for advice about packaging or what his thoughts are about what we're doing with marketing, because he's actually a teenager, so he's very in tune with what's going on in social media. And so it's been fun. It's fun to see his involvement with us. Pauline, the same thing. Her kids are a little bit younger, but her kids also participate in feedback for product development and package and design in terms of colors and in terms of new flavors that we might be developing. And so we'll often say Kay said this or Jay said this or B said this, and their input is valued by both of us because it is something that we really take to heart. And they know that Twrl does take a lot of our time, but what we're proud of is that we can incorporate that into our lives and be kind of together. Sometimes we'll have pop-ups. Our kids will come and help us with the pop-ups. So it's that kind of letting them see that there is that ability to do it. But at the end of the day, I also have to say that it's not necessarily the easiest thing to do sometimes, right? There are some things that we have to say that we have to make a sacrifice for. But I think on the whole, we're trying to strike a balance, always trying to strike a balance. And I often tell some friends of mine, I think it's really about ebbs and flows. Like in a day, maybe today you get to, do some baking for your child, but at the same time, you can do a podcast recording. But maybe tomorrow I can cook a dinner, but then I can work on a grant. And so that ebb and flow and being okay to have that ebb and flow, that there's wins and kind of not losses, but just like compromises that have to happen in a day. And I think I would love to tell younger women that it's okay to have those ebbs and flows. And both Pauline and I actually took time off from our careers to be stay-at-home moms. And we're in our 40s now. And I think it's okay to have a break, but come back and say, this is what I want to do now.
Yeah, I feel like that's such a powerful thing for women to hear about the ebbs and flows, because a lot of the times we think we have to do it all the time. Like we always have to be on.
Totally.
We always have to have everything done or else we are somehow letting someone or something down. But we're only one person. We're a human. And, I think with computers and technology, sometimes we think we ourselves are like this machine capable of multiple tasks at once, and we can definitely crash and burn. And so it's better to catch that early on. And how you said there's an ebb and flow to life. It's way more fluid than what we think it has to be.
For me, I think when I was a stay-at-home mom, there were times I did really think to myself, is this what I wanted? And especially when I saw my grad school friends, my college friends, high school friends, people who were just, progressing with their careers through a promotion or through accolades. And there were times I thought, is this where my life will end? And I think I want to tell my younger self and also younger women who are thinking about careers and balancing motherhood is actually it doesn't end with a period there when you are a stay-at-home mom. Yeah. Especially when I think to myself, my son is going off to college in a few years. And in some ways, that's almost a whole new chapter for me. And that whole new chapter, what will it bring for Twrl? I'm actually a little bit excited about it, right? Like when he goes to college, maybe it's a whole new world of college drinking Twrl drinkers for me. So I actually think like wanting to tell the younger self, there is so much possibility. That period in our life is just a period in your life. It doesn't define or end you, but it will shape you. I think being a stay-at-home mom has really shaped my relationship with my child. It has created a strong foundation. There are amazing memories that I can never bring back or create because that time has passed. But I had that time with him. And so now I feel kind of maybe a full zest of energy to devote to Twrl. And at the same time, as my child is so busy with his own world and he is, exploring things, he's also really busy. And so in some ways, it's great. It's a great timing for me personally.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, and especially important to hear again for other people out there right now who may be going through motherhood and or maybe a later stage of life, and they might think that entrepreneurship might not be open to them. But it totally is. And this can be another chapter for you. And you shouldn't limit yourself by what, I guess, societal expectations are. Like you can do what you've been dreaming of. Like there's no age limit or cap to when you have to do that.
Right. I definitely agree. I think one thing that Pauline has really brought to the table in terms of motherhood and balancing that she constantly reminds me of is, it is important for us to be there for our kids. Her kids are a little bit younger. And so they're still at a stage where they really still want mommy in their life. And, where I have a teenager who's like, okay, sure, you can occasionally come into my life. And so it's actually been fun to kind of see that side of her younger kids being so involved and wanting to know and being so proud of, we saw Twrl on TV or we saw Twrl at the shop or our teachers are drinking Twrl. And so that excitement is really fun for all of us to see.
Yeah.
And what I love about what Pauline actually has we even talked about it recently, is that she wants to be there for her kids. She wants to do Twrl, but she also wants to be there for her kids. So how do we find that balance? And so a lot of times we've said that we do have to carve out time on the weekends to not work on Twrl. As you can imagine, like a startup life, it's as much as you put in, as much as you get out. But at the same time is what you talked about at the beginning. I don't want to paint a picture that we don't do anything. But we have to have a conversation to actually stop doing as much as we were doing. Because that balance, you can't do it all. And there is going to be burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, taking breaks is so important. And I definitely have had to tell myself that many times.
Definitely.
So, yeah, you got to take breaks. And it's good having that rest. I feel like it also helps you to reset. And sometimes it might give you clarity on things that weren't easily viewed to you the first time around because you had so many other things on your plate. So definitely need those breaks once in a while. Now, I'm just curious, what has been one of the most exciting milestones you've hit with Twrl?
Well, I think that's a really great question. I think in terms of milestones, my personal milestone would be when we landed our first live TV interview at Expo West.
Wow.
So the context of Expo West is it's basically the Super Bowl of all food and bev for people from all walks of life, retailers, distributors, customers, people from the trade come and they try your product, learn about your product. And it's just like hundreds and hundreds of companies and it's over multiple days. And so I think it was a 3-day event for us. And our second day, we got a call at 8:00 in the morning and they said, could you come down at 8:30? We'd love to interview you.
Wow.
And so we were like, okay, sure. So we went down and the reporter came and talked to us. We were going to film, record at 9, but there was a fire. So then we were put on 9:15 or something like that. And so it was really, really fun to be able to have that experience. One, to be chosen. They basically said that out of all the new hot product brands, we were the chosen brand to be featured. And then to have that ability to just be on TV live and talk about kind of the idea that we wanted to bring this Asian American, the flavors of our culture to the world, and being the world's first plant-based milk tea. It was really, really exciting for us. And that was my own personal one.
No, I love that. That's so great, because I feel like that must have been such an exhilarating moment, because this is like both of your brainchild and just so much work and effort towards it. And having that acknowledged on such a large scale, I'm sure that was just such a wonderful moment and memory that you have now.
Definitely. And I think what was crazy about the whole situation was our booth that Pauline designed was actually stolen that week before Expo West. Yes, it was super crazy. And we did actually get on the news. Pauline was actually interviewed by CBS, like local CBS, because it was just taken. You know, all these packages are being stolen. And so someone probably thought it was like a fridge or I don't even know, a cooler, because it was super incredibly heavy. And so because of that, Pauline and I actually had to leave the Bay Area really early in the morning to go pick up a new booth that our booth printer made for us. And so we were coming down, like Pauline woke up at 5, you know, we hit the road. So we were setting up literally way into the wee hours for it was our first ever trade show. And so we actually out of pocket had to buy another new booth. Kind of there were just like crazy moments for this trade show, you know, having never done it before. We were extremely lucky. We have another partner with us, Amy Tsai, who basically managed the entire Expo West kind of logistics. So thank goodness she had chosen a printer that was in the Southern California area. Because if that wasn't the case, if we had ordered it from kind of the Midwest, we would never have been able to order a replacement booth. And then we wouldn't have been able to have this amazing experience coupled with this live TV show exposure. So so there's so many things that were happening.
Yeah, it sounds like a roller coaster ride.
Exactly. Like the low of like losing a booth to like maybe having a replacement to the printer saying there might not be one. And then just like the craziness of just Pauline and I literally setting up. It was Women's Day. I remember specifically March 8th. And at the end of like, I don't know, it was like 10 o'clock. We were like, okay, we're finally done. Let's take a picture for Women's Day. And so it's actually on our Instagram. I don't even know if people can tell, but we were like exhausted.
You're like, we made it.
We totally made it. I know. I was like, Pauline's like, you have to just post something about Wednesday. I was like, okay, let's just post this and just be like, we're celebrating Women's Day, chasing our dreams. And like, we're going to start this Expo West and like, let's see what happens. And so we were just so grateful from the response. You know, all the different people around us were like, you guys were really, really busy at Expo West. It was constant, nonstop, people trying us, talking with us and giving us great feedback. And so it was very validating to be at Expo West. And to just see people's reactions, like, wow, that's really good. Yeah,
you're getting that live customer feedback right there.
Yeah, and I think like as we get busier, you know, we met at a pop-up. When we first started, we were doing a lot more of these pop-ups. And now as we've gotten busier and we have more retailers, we don't get the chance to do them as much. But I have actually kind of made it my own kind of mantra that I want to try to do one a month still. Because it allows me a chance to meet customers like you, fans, to hear feedback, you know, and so it does take work, you know, it takes work away from my family, but I've made it a decision to just do a couple hours a month. And because it allows me to kind of recharge and reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure it must be so great to see the people, like literally you're seeing the faces behind the numbers, I guess you would say, like as your product starts selling more and more, you're seeing like, this is who they are and this is who's appreciating the product. So that's really great that you do make it part of your mission to keep meeting those people. So that way you continue to get that product feedback, but also, you know, I think going back to the basics of why you're doing it and just knowing like we made this for people to enjoy and you're seeing that come to fruition in real life.
Oh, that is so beautifully said. I love that.
Well, thanks. But really, it's been so wonderful getting to know more about Twrl Milk Tea and your journey. And I'd love to know what upcoming projects you might have coming up.
So we are working on launching more distributors and also launching more retailers. So we are excited about kind of expanding our footprint beyond Northern California, as well as deepening into Northern California. So those are things that we're just really active on doing. And they do take a lot of time to cultivate the relationships. We're also looking at new flavors. It takes a bit of time because we are very particular about kind of the health as well as the sustainability aspects of what we're putting into our products. So those are things that are just immediate. In terms of kind of where our focus as a company, we're doing a stronger and bigger push in terms of our sustainability and our carbon footprint. So a little bit about, there was a conscious decision to put it into a can and not into a plastic bottle, where a lot of actually tea drinks are put into plastic bottles. Yeah. And it was one because of the carbon footprint with cans. And the second was we chose pea milk specifically because it actually does not use as much water and does not produce as much carbon emissions. So those aspects we are very adamant about. And as we look at new different teas, we are also very conscious that our original tea suppliers are all small family farms. They're all organic and non-GMO. And so it's not as easy to necessarily find new tea varieties that match all those criteria.
Yeah, no, it sounds like you've both put in so much work into the development of the flavors and the back end as far as like sustainability and making sure that there's conscious decisions behind everything. What flavors do you currently have available right now? And then can you tell us a little bit more about pea milk? Because I know a lot of people might be saying, what is pea milk? I've never heard of that. And I don't know if that is also something that you've thought about as far as when you're marketing, like how do people wrap their head around pea milk?
I have to say you're not the first to mention that. And I definitely agree that people are like, are peas like PEA, like the green peas that you think about? And I'm like, yes, they are peas, but there happen to be yellow peas, not green peas. And so the thing about peas that most people don't know is actually they're really, really great for the environment. Peas they produce 4 times less carbon emissions than a glass of dairy milk, and 85% less water usage than almond milk, less fertilizers used than what oat and soy milk combined. And they actually offer 3 times more protein and 75 less sugar than oat milk. So our drinks, 1 can actually offers 1 gram of protein. And that does come from kind of the plant-based option that we use. And what's even more kind of amazing are peas regenerate the soil they grow in. So they complement the biological nitrogen fixation capabilities, and they actually build soil health and help with like diversity of like rotations of crops. So in terms of, there's a kind of a big fancy word of regenerative farming. And those are things that people are talking a lot about nowadays. And all these things at the end of the day play into what we say is when you have a food product, what type of carbon footprint does it leave? What is it doing? And so we're really proud that, not only is our cans 45 calories, but it actually has a really low carbon footprint. And so I think nowadays, like you shouldn't just track calories. I actually think people should track carbon footprint also when they're thinking about their food purchases and consumption.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, as someone who has tried Twrl Milk Tea before, I don't feel like the pea milk really influenced the tea flavor. Like it felt like it was very complimentary.
You're totally on target because Pauline actually tested 20 plant-based milks. And what she found was pea milk was the most neutral. So aside from the benefits of its sustainability for the earth and kind of the health aspects with more protein and less sugar, it actually was the most neutral. And so it did not overpower the brewed tea. So we actually use 3 times the amount of teas that other producers might use. And it's really because we are really adamant about having only brewed tea. And so when you have a plant-based dairy alternative, some of them will have a stronger taste that will actually overpower the taste of the tea. And so our pea milks actually are quite neutral, but they actually still give you that kind of dairy taste, especially when it's combined with nitro infusion.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much science behind the art.
There is. I would say that I always joke to Pauline, I was like, you're so good at product development. And she's so on target, on trend, kind of in terms of like what she created in her home kitchen. And to turn that into a canned beverage is not an easy task. The first time it was turned into a product of a canned nature, we actually had to dump the entire production run. And reason was because they use tea flavoring. So a lot of times when you brew a tea drink, they did use brewed tea, but the level of the tea, the quality of the tea, where the tea is sourced from, the flavoring doesn't stay. So they actually have to add tea flavoring back and tea coloring back to get it. So when you drink around, look at it to see if it says there's flavoring. And that's usually what the flavoring is related to. Something else they never kind of talked about is at the end of our brewed cycle, our brewed tea is actually composted by local farmers who actually fertilize their soil, allowing kind of our leaves to kind of come back to like Mother Earth. And so what I would love to kind of have readers think about, especially we're in Earth Month, April 22nd is Earth Day, is think about, the things that Mother Earth offers us and how can we give back to Mother Earth through the products that we consume, through the products that we choose to buy for our homes. And I would hope that they would consider products like Twrl as part more of their everyday life.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's so important as entrepreneurs to think about our footprint, especially in the ingredients that you might be using, or just kind of like the elements where you are as well, or just kind of like how you said, like the carbon footprint and everything. I know for me as a destination photographer, I'm always traveling to all these beautiful natural surroundings and landscapes. And so I recently chose to implement working with a nonprofit called One Tree Planted for every like of my services booked to plant a tree, because for me, I really want all of these natural surroundings to be protected. And so by us, really thinking about our footprint and how can we contribute positively back into what we're using or what we're doing, it's so important as we move forward.
That's fantastic that you partner with that organization. On Twrl's side, we did something very similar. We partner with a company called Plus Purpose, and we chose 2 nonprofits that really focus on sustainability. And one is also focused on replanting trees. We're super excited about this kind of ability to lower the carbon footprint. And so every can that is purchased from Twrl will be donated to Plus Purpose. So we're really excited.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Olivia, for joining us today. Where can our listeners find Twrl Milk Tea, and where can they follow for more information?
So we're super grateful. I wanted to first say that for the opportunity to talk with you and share with you our story. Where people can find us would be our website, www.twrlmilktea.com. And we do sell direct to consumer. We're available online through Good Eggs, Amazon, also through Instacart for a lot of the retailers that carry us. And where they can follow us online would be at twrlmilktea.com. And so there you can find our social media handles for like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, and we would love all the support. And we would love people to kind of share their Twrl stories, post photos. We love hearing from customers.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait to get some more Twrl Milk Tea myself.
We'll be twirly in excitement.
Awesome. Well, thank you, listeners, for tuning in today. And we hope that you found this episode inspiring for your own creative journey. As always, we are sending good vibes to thrive and hope you are one step closer to pursuing your passions. Bye.